Doing good. Hey, good morning to the light. If you look up here, it looks a little bit different because we're going to do things a little bit different today. You know, just finished a series 2 weeks ago on Love by Design. We talked about how to communicate and listen, it applied to everyone in this room, whether you're wanting to be married, unmarried, whatever it may be. If you're an in-law, whatever, any of those situations, it applies to you. And so we're going to have a marriage panel today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We had it the first service, and it was great and fun and a lot of wisdom up here. So we're going to do that again. And next week, I'm going to start a new series. By the way, Easter is coming up. Invite somebody to Easter. Give God praise for His Son, Jesus Christ. And but I'm going to start a new series next week entitled On the Way. And what it's going to be about is some of the conversations that Jesus began to have with His disciples when He knew that He was about to leave them. And He started asking them questions. Who do men say that I am? But who am I to you? And letting them know that, look, you guys are going to scatter. You're going to be confused. And they thought that He had left them. But He had some conversations to help them after He had gone. And those same things that He shared with them help us. As we're going to start that series next week called On the Way. So I'm going to invite our marriage panel up today. First, I'm going to have Kemper and Beth Morrow. Give them a hand as they come up. By the way, they just celebrated 2 days ago their 50th wedding anniversary. Yeah. And next, I'm going to have Steve and Gretchen Dennis come up and join us. Give them a hand. Next, I am going to have Ron and Ava Bates come up and join. I'm already here. Here comes Ava. Give her a hand. So listen, we're going to have a good time here and have some questions that, as I said already, is going to help every one of us here. And you know, here's one of the things that I think about is that if you've been married, you've probably said this before. Man, I wish I had known that. I wish I had known that before. So we're going to hear some things today that's going to help all of us. And I am going to invite Zach Sample up. He's going to be our moderator. Give him a hand.
Thank you, Pastor. How's everyone doing? Wonderful, wonderful. So the last couple of weeks, we've been taking in questions from the congregation, from some of you. Submitted some online or just texted them in. And we got a lot in, and we were happy about that. And some of these are fun. Some of these are easy, I guess. Is marriage questions easy? I'm not sure. Half and half. We'll see. We'll find out, won't we? But we're just real excited. Thank you for doing that. Thank you, panel, for being here, doing what you do, being married for so long. It's just great for young people to be able to see great marriages like yours. So we thank you as well. Okay, so yeah, give them a clap. Give them a hand clap. Awesome. So Pastor Ron already introduced them, but I want to give you a little bit more information about them. So we'll start with Pastor Ron and Ava Bates. They have been married for 35 years this year and have 2 grown children. And I asked first service, but which one's your favorite? Can't say? Which one? Okay, there you go. That's such a good answer. That's such a good answer. Then we have Kemper and Beth Morrow, who've been married 50 years, have 5 adult children, and 14 grandchildren. And then last but not least, Steve and Gretchen Dennis, who've been married 12 years and have 3 children. And then I am also married. I didn't say that first service, but second service, I am also married. I've married 3.5 years to Caitlin. She's over here. She was the real short one that was standing right there singing her heart out. Yeah, she's way too good for me. Okay, we'll go ahead and jump on in this. And first question, we're going to direct to Pastor Ron and Ava Bates. The question is, what role does God play in your marriage?
I would say that it's the central thing of our marriage. I said in first service too, but I wouldn't have even married him, even considered, if I didn't know that he didn't love Jesus. Because you don't do missionary marriages, right? And because that's hard. It's a harder road. Let's get wrong with this. I don't know, whatever. Road to hoe. It's just hard. And so, but it is central to everything we are and who we are. And Jesus Christ is the Lord of our marriage.
Yeah, go ahead and give God praise for that. That's the truth. You know, what I'd say to that is that it's not just about knowing God, or, you know, I grew up and I knew of God, heard of Jesus, but it wasn't until I developed a relationship. And what I mean by that is that when I began to hear His voice in my heart, because that's when I began to, in situations in our marriage, I would hear Him and it would cause me to make an adjustment. in myself or in the relationship. And so it's a huge role. Without that as the center of our marriage, we'd have had a rough marriage.
Any follow-up?
I do real quick.
Okay.
Because this has been going on, just as stirred in me. I would say that he's our stabilizer. And here's what I mean by that. When we just got back from a cruise, it was a short cruise, but it was what you would call uneventful. The waters were calm, no problems, everything was great. They kept the water in the pool, and it was uneventful. But we've also been on a ship where we were in the open ocean, and we ran into high winds and 50-foot swells, and the water had to be drained out of the pool, and you couldn't get close to the side, and the stabilizers had to come out. That's a whole different boat to be on. And that's kind of like marriage. You have easy sailing, and you've got rough waters. And when the stabilizers come out, it steadies the boat. And if you let God be your stabilizers, you'll make it through the rough water. And I encourage you to get through the rough water.
Did you rehearse these? You practiced, didn't you? You practiced the answers,
You know
yeah.
what? The worship. it's the worship. It was the song. But when you get through when you're in the rough water, it seems like you'll never get out of the rough water. But you will, and there'll be smooth sailing again. So I just want to encourage anybody going through rough water right now, hunker down, as we'd say, hunker down.
That's great.
I agree with what you said.
There we go. Perfect. Perfect answer every single time. I'm taking notes. I am taking notes. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. This is going to be to Kemper and Beth. What is the most joyful part of marriage?
Well, I can't agree. We shouldn't say anything. I think just seeing how God plays such a role in our lives. We both were saved when we got married, but we weren't living for God. There's a difference. Born again, filled with baptism, whatever. But unless you're living for God, you really don't have a relationship. You don't have the guidance that you need. And for me, it's just the joy of seeing 50 years of labor plus 2 years of courting and 5 children, and seeing how they all live for the Lord, and seeing your grandchildren pray, understanding how God is just the glue in that relationship, and He brings everything together. For me, that's just joy, knowing where I was and where I could be and where I am.
That's really good. Wow.
And I agree with what you said.
Mutual respect. Mutual respect.
It really is the joy of our marriage is seeing. We've raised 5 kids. They've all got children. They're married to wonderful people, but they've gone through their own trials, and some of them have been married more than one time, and some of them have been married more than 2 times. But God is faithful to get them where they need to be, even when they weren't doing what they should have been doing. And to see that, let me tell you something. There have been a lot of tears cried over raising 5 kids. And the joy comes in seeing them get to that place to where you knew they always could be. And they're there. So we're just excited to see what's fixing to birth in their lives. A lot of joy in that.
It's wonderful. Any follow-up?
Oh, well, I would just add to that, I can't wait to get to that point to see my kids, wholeheartedly following the Lord and praying, the grandchildren praying. But I would say for us, not being at that point, a joy is being married to your best friend. That's a lot of joy there, because then you're having fun, you're loving being with them, you can confide in them, and you confide in them.
That's really good. That's really good. Great. I'll get rid of the next question. This is actually for Steve and Gretchen Dennis. This is going to be a fun one, so buckle up. How much input should in-laws have in our marriage?
Okay, well, like I said, last service, early on in our marriage, Steve and I's mother did not get along. We butted heads, and so that was an issue, but Steve, from the very get-go, was very forward with his mother and letting her know that I have now become first place. Oh, and Steve was a mama's boy. I forgot to mention that. Mama's boy right here. So, no, that's not something to be proud of. Okay. Anyway.
It is if you're a mama's boy.
Yes, absolutely.
But instead of it causing division in the home, it caused division between his mom and him. So it wasn't in our home. He was supporting the home, he was supporting the marriage structure, and eventually he was able to work that through with his mother, and we now have a good relationship. So.
And I can breathe a little easier this time because my in-laws were in the first service. So I was trying to figure out how to answer with them here. No. What I said then is exactly what I'll say now. They're awesome grandparents, and I want to honor them in that they love and they dote on our children. And there's been a handful of times we had some trouble with our second child at birth and some good things, and they supported us when we needed support. They jumped in, no questions asked, hopped the first plane in to support us when we needed support. But they're not there when we don't need the support. They're not there interfering. They're not there interjecting and trying to guide. And that there's a reason that Scripture quotes both in the New Testament, quoting the Old Testament, that the man shall leave his mother and his father and become one with his wife, because God knows what He's doing. Amen. God knows that this structure needs to set aside, set apart to be its own entity, and the boundaries of where their role starts and stops, and now moving forward, that changed, and they're no longer the parent. They're no longer that. So they're there to support and be there when they need it. And there's going to be bridges that we come to that we haven't crossed yet, and they have. And what better person to call and say, hey, how do we handle this? But that's when they interject, if we ask for it, not that you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, and oh, you guys are doing this wrong, and well, take it from me because we've been there, blah blah blah. That's not their role anymore. They've raised their children and set their children off, and now their children are grown adults, and so how much influence they should have should be set on those boundaries. And as I said this in the first service, it was my place to set those boundaries with my mother. If Gretchen's parents were interfering, it would be her place to set those boundaries. Because if I go, and I am the head of the house, but if I go and I say, well, you guys can't, you're nosy, you're butting in, you can't do that in our family, then that's just going to cause that much more friction. So those boundaries are set. And then it can work. It can work awesome and be the way it's supposed to be.
Well, Kemper and Beth, since y'all have been in-laws for a very long time, what's some advice you can give on the influence of being in-laws?
Well, I'm sitting here hearing all this, and so much is going through my head, but we'll keep it quick. Being in-laws and having had in-laws, they were wonderful. My in-laws were wonderful to me. They loved me and treated me like a daughter. And I try to do that with my daughters and son-in-laws, and I feel that way about them. Now, I haven't said that. I can tell you I've had son-in-laws that I didn't feel that way about. And I've had daughter-in-laws that I didn't feel that way about. But we still stayed out of the situation and let it, and God resolved it. And we still tried to love them when they weren't lovely. Here's the big deal for our responsibility and our role today is to be there as support and to be there when we are asked for advice. And that's what we try to do. Our kids do a great job. They're very conscientious about their relationships and their parenting. And so our job is easy, but it hasn't always been that way. And we still try to just support them. And I said this in the first service, and I think this is worth repeating. Those children come through your children for a reason. Yours came through you for a reason. God ordained you to know how to pray, when to pray, what's going on in their life. And y'all know that third sense you have about your kids. Well, your children will have that same sense about theirs. They will know what to do, how to pray, and you need to get out of the way and let them do that. there's growth there for both of them, and that's their journey, not our journey. So,
I agree with what you said. So I failed to do this in the first service or beginning of this one, but I want to welcome these marriage newcomers. Yes, they have a different perspective than old people do, but my parents made it known early in our marriage that if there was any problem between Beth and I, that they would choose her. So that made me walk the line.
It's perfect.
Can I add something I said in the first service that I forgot to say in this service? To help establish those boundaries, young married couple, don't go running to your in-laws every time you have a little spout. Every time she upsets me or this or that, I don't go running, yeah, Mom, you're not going to believe what she did. Because all that then does is help create strife and friction, and if there's any ill opinion whatsoever, one way or the other, all that's going to do is fuel that fire. So that's something that we as the young marrieds can do to help make sure those boundaries stay. We set them, but then we go running to them every time. Then we just wash that line. So.
Pastor Ron, yeah. Go
Can
ahead.
I say, just something that's in response to that? And as in-laws, don't let them do that. Stop them. If they come to you with stuff, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear it. Bye.
I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and so I got to watch my 4 older sisters and their relationships and their marriages. And we had really great premarital counseling, which I suggest for all dating couples. But in our premarital counseling, they said you come to a counselor if you're having problems, a trusted church member, clergy, somebody, but don't go to your parents because you're going to kiss and make up. And your parents are not going to kiss and make up, and they're going to hold a grudge. And so Ronnie was the favorite because they'd ask me, how's it going? He's great. He did this. He brought me flowers. They'd be like, we love Ronnie. And so, which he really is great. He's pretty perfect. But, yeah, don't share.
Well, the truth of that was there was nothing bad to report.
Sure. Trustworthy pastor right here.
But the principle is the same. You get, so, I would sum that up. To sum that up, and that's a good question. And I reiterated what Steve said in the first service too. Is support and boundaries. Support and boundaries. And listen, we're in-laws now. We're learning our boundaries. But it's not like you can't share anything with your parents. You just have to know the boundaries of that. So.
Absolutely. That was great. So that was the tough one that we got through. So congratulations to everybody. That was actually really good. We're going to go ahead and move on to questions from couples who aren't yet married. And so this will be for the men only to answer first. But what should I look for in a potential wife?
I would say that how they respond to you and treat you, and that was big with Ava. And when I met Ava, I wasn't looking to get married, okay? But first thing that attracted to me was her beauty, and that's kind of what all of us guys would say. We're attracted to that, and it draws us to them. But how she treated me was really what drew me to her. But here's something else that's key, is not just how they treat you and what you think of them as far as how they look and the attraction externally, but look at how they talk about other people and how they respond to other people, their integrity, the heart issue. And that's the thing that drew me to her, was her heart was pure, and it's important. So how they respond and talk about other people when they're not around says a lot about an individual. So,
Kemper?
Well, that's a two-answer question. Coming from a 19-year-old who just met a beautiful young girl. I married my best friend's sister, by the way. And the first thing that attracted me was those beautiful eyes, along with the beautiful woman. But then you get like the pastor said, how they treat you, how they respond around your family, how your family likes them, I think. But the real attraction was her soul, the beauty of her soul.
I'm going to steal Kemper's there. It's kind of a twofold answer for me as well. The obvious answer is they have to love Christ. If you're a young lady looking for a man and he's not in love with Jesus, then that's not your man. The right guy is going to draw you closer to the Lord, not away from the Lord. And so wait, you're a princess in the king's court. You wait for your prince. Amen. Second with that, and this is what I feel is one of our strongest pieces. I'm in love with her spirit, her heart, her spirit, her outgoingness, her everything. I mean, the beauty will fade. I'm not always going to be this handsome. We rejoice in each other's presence. We get to laugh. I was saying earlier, like we're going on road trips and singing in the car extremely horribly, but it's one of the funnest things that we do, and we're just laughing, and we're sitting in the chairs laughing. Just the other day, I made a comment. I was cleaning some baby puke off the floor, and said something. I said, "Cinderella's almost done," and I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. But it's this rejoicing in each other's presence.
Yeah.
And so look for that, someone that you can just rejoice when you're in their presence.
Yeah, that's so true. I heard you singing earlier today, and I laughed. I laughed.
One thing I forgot to say that I wanted to is my wife has a saying that we use often. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. So if you're around, don't just marry the first person you see or the first person you're attracted to. You got to get to know them, and they will show you who they are. Amen.
That's good. All right, we're gonna
Don't ignore the red flags.
Yes. We're going to reverse the question. We're going to ask the women what type of husband we should look for.
One who shows you honor, who listens to you too, and cares about your heart, protects you. I felt very loved, very protected, and I still do by Ron. And I think I loved his integrity and his humor. And again, we're like best friends too. When we married, obviously there was an attraction, and his beautiful blue eyes. But you know, I think just looking at the heart and their walk with Christ.
You know, a lot of people don't know this about Ava, but she was blind when we got married.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah, God healed her.
Everything she said, that was good. But best advice. When I was 15 years old, and I'll make it quick, my dad put me in a car and drove around, and he said, "I just want to talk to you. You're fixing to start dating, and I want to make sure that you know what to look for." And now this is coming from a man that wasn't in a good marriage, and but he wanted me to make sure that I knew what to look for. And he told me, remember, you're not just marrying somebody that's going to be your husband, but that will also be the father of your children. And that was very important to me. I've told that to all my kids. I think it's wisdom. It stuck with me a long time. Kipper was very good with his little sister. He had a 2-year-old sister at that time. He was precious with her, and you know, just took her everywhere. The other thing is don't ignore the red flags. Ron, you said it, boom. I mean, how many people have we seen? You know going in, you don't need to be going there. You know, I said earlier, my kids have gone through several marriages. 2 of our kids have been married 3 times. And every time they ignored the red flags, every time. When they knew going into it, they shouldn't be going into it. So don't ignore the red flags.
I would agree with that statement, the father thing. Once again, I just love looking at the man that you're potentially getting married and looking at him as a father. Would he fill that role well? And then just making sure you're equally yoked, very important. God can do anything in marriage. He can heal any problem that comes up, but making sure that you guys are equally yoked.
That's good. Right. We'll move on to the next question. Pastors Ron and Ava. Do you think your marriage reflects your family upbringing? How or how not?
Well, for me, I'd say no. And because I didn't grow up in church, my parents didn't go to church, I didn't want to be like my dad. Now, my dad got born again at 69 years old. But even then, he didn't have a lot of change in his life. But prior to that, we didn't go to church. I didn't want to be like him. I didn't want to be, alcoholic and womanizer and other things like that. So, but here's the thing that influenced me. And yeah, we are a product of our environment. And I said, you know what? When I was older, I don't ever want to be like that. I don't want to go down that same path. But I found myself going down that same path. But I had friends that went to church, and they would invite me to church. Listen, guys, invite people to church. And I tell you, it made such an impact on my life that we moved a lot, and I would find a friend. They'd go to church, and I'd go to church with them, and I had an influence. I gave my heart to the Lord when I was 12 years old. But because I wasn't in a home that went to church, I didn't follow Christ. But when I got older, those influences started to come up, and I started to seek Him and read the Bible. And so that had a huge impact on shaping me, just those influences of Christ that I had in my life. So the encouragement I would say there is that it doesn't matter what environment you're in, God seeks each one of us. And there's something in us that desires Him. And so, no, it didn't influence me, but here's the thing. Had I never surrendered my life to Christ, I think I would have been a true product of my environment. But thank God for godly influences in our lives.
Just adding to that is, if you had a rough upbringing or one parent that was dysfunctional, as his was an alcoholic and womanizer, and you have a family tree, right? And we just said in prayer, we're going to cut that branch off. We cut that alcoholism. If maybe there's been incest in your family, whatever it is, you don't have to be a product. Your past doesn't have to define your future. And you can have a new beginning. And that's what's kind of great, is because you become one and you're the family. And you love them and you honor them, but you don't have to be around that dysfunction. Just one quick thing. When he had to grow up in a very rough childhood with a very destructive alcoholic father. And he had to grow up, and every day you had to make friends with him and with his dad, and because he didn't know what he did the night before. And so when we had children and we went over there, and he had rules, Ron had boundaries. And he says, if you're going to be drinking, I'm not going to come. And we'd pull up, and he said he wouldn't, but he was drinking. And so we loaded the kids back up and we left. And he finally stopped, and he did, again, come to the saving knowledge of Jesus. But you have to have boundaries with toxic situations that are unhealthy.
That's good. That's good. We're going to move to the, one more thing.
Well, let me add to that too, because in our home, she mentioned something that reminded me of something. You had to make friends every day. Because I think most of it was he didn't know what he did the night before, so he was mad just in general, But we had to make friends every day. But it came real easy for me just to not talk when I was upset. So that carried over into our marriage. So when we got married, I realized that, when I'm upset, I could go for days. And I'm okay with it. She didn't grow up that way. But God transformed me and allowed me to see that dysfunction in me that allowed me to stop doing that and not let the sun go down on my anger.
That's good. That's good. We'll go to the next question. We didn't get to this one first service, but this would be a really good one to ask. And Kemper and Beth, someone submitted this one. They said, if we are married, should we be allowed to have my time, or is it always just our time?
You're definitely allowed to have my time, and we think it's so important. He's got his interest, I have my interest, and trust me, he doesn't care a thing in the world about decorating anything. So, really. So I need my time, and he needs his. I don't hear anything. I won't say I don't like hunting. I like being out like that, but yeah, he needs your time. You do, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to be yourself, and sometimes we enjoy things that bore other people, and then it's a waste of time. But it's always been like that with us. We always allow the other one space.
That's good. That's good. We'll jump to go ahead.
Real quick. I think that's one of the healthy things in our marriage as well, is that there was such a security in our marriage. She didn't demand my time all the time and vice versa. But that's healthy to let, and I'm not talking about guys' night out, girls' night out. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about you got some hobbies you like to do, and it's healthy to be able to do that.
It's really good. I did another question in here for Steve and Gretchen. This was submitted. Someone asked, how do you balance time for your marriage and time for kids? I feel our kids dominate every part of our home, and there's no us time. Any advice?
Oh man, that's our one, right? No, but having 3 littles, it is hard. It's very hard. But one little thing that Steve, just giving honor to him again, that he does is when he comes home, the kids are all over him. Oh, Daddy, and he gives them, acknowledges them, loves on them, and then says, okay, it's mama's time. And so mom gets the time to ask him about his day. I want details. What have you been doing? Women are detail oriented. So they'll start at the very, well, I woke up, and that's what I want. I want to hear, okay, you woke up, yeah, and the kids are kind of going crazy, and what was that, Daddy? And he's like, no, this is mama's time. This is mama. So he respects me and puts that order, so growing up, they'll know the order of the house. So.
Another thing that I believe, and this is something that we struggle with, that's hard, is being very intentional about date night, or date night doesn't have to be some big extravagant thing. It could just be putting a DVD in or whatever. But when she knows that, okay, this Thursday is date night, and there's nothing going to come, and I'm not going to all of a sudden call and say, hey, Ron called one up, I can play tennis. I'm not, date night's off. I'm not going to do anything like that. She knows nothing's going to come before that. Then on those other nights, whenever going back to the mic kind of thing, it's a little easier to let me go ride my dirt bike or do whatever I want to do, because she knows that I'm going to be intentional and nothing's going to come in between that. So I would say being very intentional, and if we don't have this, we don't have that, just make it anything. It might be just walking down to the park, but that time where she knows that's you guys' time.
It's really good. It's really good. We've got time for one more question, so we're going to jump to the bottom. This will be a happy one. Well, they're all happy questions and answers, but this one will be a little bit different. Each of you, I want you to share one memorable part of your wedding day. Good or bad?
I'll go first. A thing that popped in my mind as soon as you said that was her walking down. I mean, that's when I realized, hey, that's my wife, Yeah, Love Bank. It's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a good day. So it's when I saw her coming down, it was like, this is the moment. This is my wife, and gonna spend forever with her. That was a very enjoyable moment.
I also love that, but we had a lot of mishaps on that day. Little weird stuff happening, like the photographer not showing up, the air conditioner going out in August, the cake almost falling over. It's everything. But I quickly went to when they were doing the Unity candle. We were doing the Unity candle, and they were like metal sleeves that went over, and they didn't lock them down. And so when we picked them up, they were on springs, and they went like, and we started giggling, and the lady is singing, Our Father which art in heaven, and we're just like cracking up. We couldn't, like snorting, and I'm trying to stop. And so that was a funny thing. But yes, I love you, and looking at you. No, you're my forever love.
Kemper and Beth?
I'll go first. I had a bridal luncheon on the day we got married, and Kemper came over to the house and rang the doorbell and gave me a little penny. Didn't give it to me, gave it to somebody else, because back in that day, you still didn't see your bride the day we got married. They don't do that so much now. But that little penny meant a lot to me, just that, I had no idea he knew what that penny was for, or that he was supposed to do it, but he did it, and it was really a sweet thing. And those sweet little things like that just touch your heart.
I think for me, the most joy was just knowing that we were going to be together now. I had lived away from her for several months. I graduated the year before she did, and I came to Texas to start earning a living. She was still in school down there, and I flew home on long weekends and stuff like that. But just going down there, planning a wedding, and knowing that finally we were going to be together, it just brought a lot of joy to me.
That's really sweet.
Probably for both of us would be me hyperventilating down the aisle, literally, the bill. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And unbeknownst to me, her brother was pulling her around in a car to get out from where we were having the wedding, whatever. And I find this out later. She was like, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. But when she did get out, I see her coming, and you're supposed to be, and I can see her veil going. And it's like sucking in like 2 inches in her mouth and rolling all the way up. And was like, what in the world is going on? And then come to find out, she's hyperventilating, walking down the aisle.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Wow. Well, well, that's all we have for you guys. Thank you, everyone, for being here and listening, and I hope you learned some great stuff from these couples. If you could please give another hand clap. Wonderful. Thank you. We'll turn over to Pastor Ron.
Awesome. Give our panel a hand. God is good. Stand with me.